I ultimately ensured a power-tripping cop could never carry a badge or a gun again. And it all started with a friendly wave on a country highway. The path to that moment was one I never expected to walk. My wife, Clara, and I made a huge life change when she inherited a house and land. It was in a place where my career fields, physical security and force-on-force analytics, were non-existent. But Clara, who works in wildlife management, received a dream job offer there, a salary matching our combined income, her own team, an employment contract, and incredible benefits. With no kids. And seeing how much it meant to her, I agreed. We sold our house and moved sight unseen. The place was like the land that time forgot. Deep in what you might call horse and buggy country. The culture shock was intense. Clara, having spent childhood summers with family there, fit right in. Me? I'm 8 inches taller than everyone and pale enough to be seen from space. So it took me a little longer to make friends. The house itself was a project. It had no plumbing, just an outhouse and a manual well pump. We bought a used trailer to live in on the property while I got to work, teaching myself the skills to bring the old house into the modern era. Our immediate area was wonderful. Full of good, trusting people. But the surrounding counties were struggling with meth and pill problems. When heroin entered the scene, the desperation spilled over into our area, bringing break-ins, carjackings, and worse. After a couple of senior citizens were murdered for a few $100s worth of belongings and their pain meds, I saw a need in my new community. Using the money we'd saved on the house renovations, I bought a piece of land deemed unfit for development at a steal. After a year of building and earthworks, all while working part-time hospital security a county over, I opened my own security, self-defense, and firearms training company. I created local jobs, helped start a neighborhood watch, offered security patrols at cost, and installed cameras for local shops. I trained people in everything from concealed carry to trauma and first aid. Somehow, I ended up becoming the go-to guy for all the regional police agencies to send their officers for state recertification and advanced training. Before I set up shop, they had to send officers on a 6-hour trip north, paying for hotels, meals, and mileage. Plus, the tactics taught up there didn't always apply to our rural environment. I offered to do it for less, and my location made it a simple day trip. For the first time, I felt my work truly mattered. I got to know a lot of the local cops pretty well and considered some to be friends. The departments here see a lot of turnover, with new officers using it as a stepping stone. But the ones who stay learn quickly that the locals demand justice, come hell or high water. In the past, when the courts failed them, citizens had taken matters into their own hands, dealing with corrupt officers themselves. One officer shot an unarmed 12-year-old. Another let a man die in a cell after a canine attack and was heard laughing about it. Both were essentially given a paid vacation until locals caught up with them. Even a judge convicted of child molestation who got a slap on the wrist went missing, later found burned alive. Because of this history, the current officers do a good job of weeding out bad apples and reminding newcomers to protect and serve, not bully. Which brings me to Officer Fuller. I was filling in an armed guard night shift at a metal alloy facility, a prime target for scrap thieves, when a squad car pulled in. After they realized it was me, the two officers decided to hang out and chat for a bit. They told me about a new transfer from a big city. Officer Fuller. Who they knew was going to be trouble. He had that I am the law attitude, they said. And was already writing tickets for ridiculous things, driving with one hand. A burnt-out fog light. Even trying to give a DUI to a guy whose car was on blocks in his own driveway with no rear axle. He was aggressive and power-tripping. And the locals were already becoming more distrustful of all the police because of him. One of the officers said, "I hope we can find something to set the bastard straight before he ruins the rep we work so hard to keep here." We brainstormed, but came up with nothing legal. A couple of weeks later, I had my first run-in with him. I was on my way to a client's home when I passed a squad car and gave my customary wave. Suddenly, the cruiser slammed on its brakes, whipped a U-turn in the middle of the highway, and flew up behind me. Lights and sirens blazing. Officer Fuller came up to my window, his hand resting on the grip of his pistol the entire time. As required by law, I informed him I had a concealed carry license. He immediately questioned why I felt the need to carry a gun, sneering that 99% of people probably wouldn't even know how to use it. This revealed Fuller's greatest fatal flaw, his profound insecurity, masked by a paper-thin layer of aggression. He believed the badge made him the law. But in reality, it just made him a liability. After his insulting questions, he wrote me a citation for reckless operation of a vehicle. His justification being that he saw me take one hand off the wheel to wave. As one person later commented, "The absolute most infuriating part of this is the fact that there's thousands of cops just like him all across America. Incompetent, insecure, arrogant and violent. Trying to be diplomatic." I said, "I just figured that you would appreciate a friendly gesture." He completely lost it, getting in my face and screaming threats about hauling my smartass downtown and costing me a month's wages and impound fees. It took every ounce of my self-control not to slam him onto the asphalt. Instead, I handed him my lawyer's business card and said all further interaction would have to go through her. He called me a pussy and told me to get out of his sight. This man was a danger. First, I went to court and got the citation dismissed with my dashcam video. Then I took the full audio and video to the sheriff. He agreed with my assessment but said his hands were tied. The union would fight any serious disciplinary action, and the best he could do was a reprimand and some training that Fuller would likely ignore. He even warned me against filing a formal complaint, fearing Fuller would retaliate. I felt defeated. But then, fate intervened. Guess who walked through my door to schedule their state-mandated recertification? Officer Fuller. He didn't recognize me at all and immediately started complaining about the recertification being a waste of his time. I let him finish before I had my Kodak moment and reminded him of our last meeting on the highway. He backpedaled, claiming he was just being by the book and that he acted aggressively because my firearm made him nervous. So he needed to assert his authority. He had just confirmed my worst fears. He was an insecure officer who couldn't handle the fact that citizens legally carry firearms. He was so consumed by his own ego that he couldn't see the trap he was walking into. He was complaining to the very man who designed the stricter local test. The man who now held his entire career in his hands. Already forming a plan. I told him I understood completely and that I operate that way as well. The dipshit was glad to hear it. While we did his paperwork, he bragged about how good a shot he was, saying he looks forward to the day someone wants to fuck around and find out. I carry a gun for defense, but I hope I never have to use it. Hearing his cavalier attitude made me sick. He asked to use my range to practice. And I even waived the fee just to see what he could do. It was pathetic. At 10 yards, he fired 17 rounds at a rapid pace and only hit the silhouette target 5 times, with just one in the center mass area. He repeated this 4 more times with similar results. When I suggested he slow down, he told me he'd forgot more than I ever knew and to shut my mouth. Down the lane, a 13-year-old girl was drilling headshots at 15 yards under my rangemaster's instruction. Humiliated, Fuller made an excuse about his sights being off and left. This is where another person's comment on my story perfectly captures my mindset. I love when such a high level of revenge comes from you following the rules and staying whiter than white. My mind was made up. I wasn't just going to fail him. I was going to do it so perfectly by the book that there would be no question he was unfit for duty. I bought a new set of digital calipers to measure every shot placement. If he was even 1/10 of an inch outside the scoring line, it would be a miss. The day of the test, he showed up in shorts and a tap-out t-shirt, wearing only his gun belt, emptied of his vest, cuffs, radio, and everything else he was required to have. I could have failed him right there for non-compliance, as he'd signed paperwork agreeing to the standards. But I wanted to see him fail on his own merits. I wanted to prove this loudmouthed piss-stain wasn't fit to be an officer. I loaned him rental safety gear and let him take the test. It was a disaster of epic proportions. The first drill requires running 25 yards, drawing from cover, firing, clearing a deliberately induced malfunction, and firing again, all on a timer. When the buzzer sounded, Fuller tripped over his own feet and did a full scorpion faceplant into the ground. After getting up, he fumbled his draw so badly that his gun went tumbling through the dirt. Losing control of your firearm is an instant failure. I stopped the test, put on my own plate carrier just in case, and gave him a second chance, purely so I could have irrefutable proof of his incompetence. He managed to hold on to his gun this time, but he struggled to clear the misfire, ran out of time, and his accuracy was abysmal, only 2 shots in the required scoring ring and 4 that missed the target completely. He failed on all 3 metrics: time, accuracy, and procedure. I've seen first-time shooters with a fear of guns do better. When I told him he failed, he exploded. He screamed that I was only doing this because of the ticket, then started slamming his fist into my wall, leaving a hole. He pointed at me and my staff, threatening, "I'm going to make sure you all regret this." By now, my rangemaster, Gunny, and a few regulars were watching through the observation window. In that single, foolish moment of rage, Fuller handed me everything I needed. He had just escalated his professional failure into a criminal act, and he did it all on camera. I calmly asked if what he said was a threat. "You bet your fucking ass it is," he yelled, and then reached out to shove me. I sidestepped, and he stumbled past, even angrier. He then spit at me and swung a punch. I easily outweigh him by 60 pounds. The moment his arm made contact with my guard, I used his own momentum to throw him over my shoulder and onto the floor with everything I had. As he lay there gasping for air, he looked up past me and started crying like a baby. My rangemaster, Gunny, a 6 feet 6 inches, 310-pound retired Marine, was standing over him. leveling a bright green less lethal training shotgun at his head while already on the phone with the sheriff. Denny had seen it all on the security feed and called it in the second Fuller started punching the wall. I got to watch Officer Fuller get hauled off my property in handcuffs. Read his rights. Yes. I pressed charges. He assaulted me, threatened my staff, and damaged my property. And I had it all on video. Later, Denny told me he'd brought the shotgun out for me. He'd never seen me that unglued and was worried he might need to hit me with a beanbag to snap me out of it. I gave the man a raise for his honesty and his willingness to protect others from anyone, even his own boss. In the end, Fuller got a plea deal. But he can never be a police officer or legally own a firearm again. While awaiting his court date, his wife filed for divorce for domestic violence, which was granted. The last I heard, he moved north and makes minimum wage working at a gas station. This story is a powerful reminder that true authority comes not from a badge or a bully's attitude, but from competence, integrity, and the respect you earn. A bully with a badge is still just a bully. And eventually, they meet someone they can't intimidate. What do you think is the best way for a community to handle officers who abuse their power?